Hey everybody, this is the Marine with Backpacking with a Hammock. Hammock camping is becoming more popular, and one of the reasons why is the hammock's ability to remove the pressure points. People are experiencing a great uninterrupted night's sleep, and one of the ways to accomplish this is with an underquilt. This way the hammock still can conform to the body, plus keep you nice and toasty warm. When people buy an underquilt, they more than likely will buy a full-length underquilt instead of a partial length or a 3/4 length underquilt. In this video, we're going to look at why a 3/4 length underquilt might be a better choice for you. Now, a full-length underquilt will keep you warm from the top of your head down to your toes, where a 3/4 length underquilt will keep you warm from behind your neck or just above the shoulder, down to your calf region, and down maybe to your ankle. Now, the concept of the 3/4 length underquilt is to put all the insulation into the core area, and the philosophy is if the core is warm, your extremities will be warm. With the full-length underquilt, most of the insulation is in the core area, but there's a lot of areas with the full-length underquilt that's being wasted because your body is not against it. Now I got my War Bonnet Ridge Runner, and I have a full-length underquilt from Underground Quilt, and I'm going to flip it over and lay on it to show you how much of this down is being wasted. Now by getting on this underquilt, it really shrunk it up, it pushed it down, so this is the best I can do to give you an example. You can see from here on up, this is all insulation I really don't need. From my shoulder up, this is all extra insulation. And on my feet end, from my foot on down, there's extra insulation that I really don't need. Now you can see with this Dream Hammock Darien, how this 3/4 length underquilt from Hammock Gear conforms to my body, where it sits. Because you can see it comes up here, under my shoulders, under this shoulder. Now I use a top quilt, and the top quilt does not have a hood on it, so I'll need insulation for my head anyways. Now there's no insulation underneath my head from my shoulder on up with the 3/4 length underquilt, so when it gets cold at night, I usually would wear a light balaclava, and I have a pillow that I'd put underneath my head anyways. Now this would provide enough insulation on the top of my head, even behind the head, with this pillow and this balaclava to about freezing temperature, which is 0 Celsius, 32 degrees. If it gets cold below freezing, then I'd put this hat on. And this would keep me nice and warm well below freezing. And you can see I have a lot of protection underneath my leg. On this leg, it comes right above the ankle, and on this side, it's just below the calf. So the only thing that's exposed is my feet and my ankle, and on my left foot, just a little bit below the calf. You can see if I take this board and put it against the calf and the heel, there's a gap right here. That gap will allow the underquilt in the foot box to come up and provide insulation from the bottom of my heel to the top of my calf. Now you can see this top quilt foot box goes way past my calf, and it will provide enough insulation here to keep my legs warm. Even though that the hammock will conform a little bit, it will not compress it enough where it won't give me enough insulation. So you can see from the end of my calf to my heel, with the foot box of the top quilt on there, the top quilt will provide enough insulation for me. All I have to do is provide insulation for my heel. Now at nighttime when it gets cold, I'll have wool socks, and if it's a cold night, I'll take this foot pad, put it inside the top quilt in the foot box, and my heels are on top of the seat pad, and it's providing insulation against the cold. Take a foot pad and I put it inside the top quilt all the way to the bottom of the foot box. Flip it around. Now the foot pad is set into the foot box of my top quilt. When I get in there at nighttime, I slide my feet down inside the foot box and put it on top of the foot pad, and that will keep me nice and warm, and that will get me down to freezing temperature, which is 0 Celsius, 32 degrees. And you can see it comes all the way up towards my calf, and it will keep my feet and my ankles nice and warm, and plus I'll have a little bit of insulation from the top quilt underneath there where the hammock isn't pushing too hard. The seat pad might be a luxury item, but I really recommend bringing this on a trip. It doesn't weigh much, and it's from Thermarest, and this is really, I think, a necessity, not a luxury item. Now with a 3/4 length underquilt, you won't be carrying that extra down. And because of the material from your head on up and your feet down is being removed, in most cases it's 6 ounces lighter than the full length underquilt, plus it's less bulky so you can pack better in your pack. And the great thing is, because the material's gone, it's less expensive. Now for an example, I can get a Hammock Gear 40 degree, which is 5 Celsius, incubator, which is a full length underquilt with 850 down, and it weighs 15 ounces and it costs $219. Now for the exact same weight of 15 ounces, I can get a Hammock Gear 20 degrees, which is -6 Celsius, Phoenix, which is a 3/4 length underquilt, and it's $20 cheaper, which is $199. And that 20 degrees, -6 Celsius, 3/4 length underquilt in most places makes a great year-round underquilt. Now underquilts can be very expensive, and if you're on a budget, one of the ways to cut the price in half even more is to buy a Hammock Gear Economy Phoenix, which is 20 degrees, -6 Celsius. It's made out of duck down instead of goose down, and it's 2 ounces heavier. And if you don't mind carrying that extra weight and a little more bulk, I really suggest to look into the Hammock Gear Economy underquilt lines. Now the 3/4 length underquilt that I'm using is from Hammock Gear, and this is the Phoenix, and it's a 20 degrees, which is -6 Celsius. And first of all, you have to know which end is the head end and which is the foot end, because most of the down is on the head end towards the top of your core than the bottom of the core. And you can tell that there's more insulation here than on the bottom end. All the Hammock Gear underquilts have a label on it. You just find the label, and that's where your head end will always be. And also what I have done, they come with carabiners, and I switched them with a quilt hook. And this is from Dutch Wear Gear, and I find this to be a little easier to hook, and it sits on the hammock a lot better. Now I have a white one, and I know my head end is with the white quilt hook, and on the tail or the back end towards my feet, I have a black quilt hook. And what you do is you take the quilt hooks, or if you have carabiners, then you take the quilt hanger and hook it to the continuous loop of the hammock. Now take the black quilt hanger and hook it to the continuous loop of the hammock on the foot end. And now what you do is you take the hammock and put it inside the underquilt. And you adjust it in there. Now you have to make some adjustment, and I'll show you how to adjust this underquilt. And then you want to make sure that the draft collar is tucked inside, not sticking out. And you take these cinch cords, which is shock cord, and it has a cord lock on it, and you tighten it up. Tighten them both up. There's one on each side. But you don't want it too loose or too tight. Now you can see there's no gap in there, and this is nice and snug on here, because if it's too loose, it'll hang open and the air will go inside there. And if it's too tight, you'll see there'll be little gaps in here, so you don't want it too tight. You want to get it nice and snug around your body so no cold air can get in, which will provide warmth all night long. And then on the other end, make sure those baffle is in there. Take the cord lock at the foot end, tighten them both up. There's one on each side. Now I get in my hammock, I take off my shoes. Now I want to find that sweet spot. I want to lie diagonally. First thing I want to do is make sure that the hammock shock cord is over my foot. And then I reach down here, bring it up over my shoulder. Now with a mat, you would lie on top of it, and it'll give you pressure points you'll scoot around, or any other material that you put in the hammock and you lie on top of. With the underquilt, it's underneath you, and there's no pressure points, and your hammock still conforms to your body, and it keeps you warm. And there's nothing that'll keep you warmer than an underquilt. When you get a 3/4 length underquilt, I really suggest that you adjust it to your body, and to do that you'll need someone to help you. So you put that 3/4 length underquilt on the hammock, and the 3/4 length underquilt will slide up and down from the head end to the toe end, and you want to lock that in place. So you get in the hammock, find that sweet spot. First you get in your hammock, And then you want to adjust the underquilt and bring the shock cord over your feet, and then adjust this side over your shoulder. You want it behind your shoulders. And you have a friend take the cord locks and lock it right in place so it will not slide up and down. It stays right in that position. Now that I got this hammock conformed to my body, I got the 3/4 length underquilt exactly where I want it. I lie in this hammock with my head to the left, my feet to the right, and so I want this 3/4 length underquilt to run this way over my body, and I want to lock it in place. So what I'm going to do is have my friend Skittles come up here, and he's going to adjust the head end first and get that tightened down. Get that nice and snug there. Then you go to the opposite end where the foot end is, and you tighten the cord lock on that end. And this way, now the 3/4 length underquilt is secure on the suspension. It will stay in this position. And the only thing you have to worry about is moving sideways on you. Now I have the underquilt underneath me, under my legs. It comes up to about my ankle. And this will keep me nice and warm all night long. Matter of fact, it's going to keep me warm right now as I take a nap. Now a con with the 3/4 length underquilt, and it's a big negative, is that when you get out of the hammock, the underquilt will shift around and you always have to readjust it. And a lot of people struggle with this, and that's why a lot of people will not buy a 3/4 length underquilt, because it takes a lot of adjustment. Every time you get out and get back in, you have to adjust it. And I'll show you. Now I got this underquilt adjusted to me. I got to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Now you can see that the underquilt is not around me. It's shifted way down underneath me. So I have to come down every time I get out, bring it up, pull it up on my shoulder and adjust it. And my feet always pretty much stays the same, but I always got to adjust it over my shoulder. And every time I get out, and I got to readjust it. Now with the 3/4 length underquilt, if it's not adjusted, you will have a cold night's sleep. And for those who do not want to hassle with adjusting the underquilt every time they get up, I really suggest that you get a full length underquilt. Now a 3/4 length underquilt might not be for everyone, especially people that get cold easily during the night like my wife, or for children. I recommend that you get a full length underquilt. Well, I hope this video has been helpful and insightful, and if you have any questions or comments, please write them down below. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Marine with Backpack with a Hammock. Thank you for watching, and God bless.